Courtney, when we first talked, I guess about a year ago, you were telling me about your rhabdo from malignant hyperthermia, which is a condition that usually occurs in surgery from anesthesia. But you've since gotten rhabdo from other things as well. Definitely walk us through some of those. And I'm also curious as to whether or not the medical community believed you when you said you had rhabdo. Because I've heard from people who've said that they've run into some friction from people in the medical community who didn't want to run medical tests on them after they said they had rhabdo.
Well, the first time that I knew I had rhabdo is what me and you talked about previously. I had a kidney stone surgery, and the next day, well, actually in discharge, I had severe muscle pain in my calves, and then it worked its way up. So it was my calves, my thighs, my stomach, and then its way up. And about 24 hours out, it was severe pain. I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom or anything, couldn't get out of a chair. So then my urine turned brown. So I paged the doctor because it was a holiday weekend, of course. And the nurse on the line said because the urine was brown that I should go get checked and told me to go to the ER. So I did. And I told the ER that time, I said, look, I researched this online already. I think I have rhabdo. And because the urine was brown that time, they said, okay, we'll test your CK level and we'll see. And of course, it came back high. So I did have rhabdo. I also was going into kidney failure and liver failure. So they admitted me, did fluids and bicarb for my kidneys, IV. And then I joined the Rhabdo support group on Facebook and posted my story. And someone said, hey, this sounds like malignant hyperthermia. So I Googled that and I thought, that sounds like exactly what happened to me. So then I joined that support group, and someone on that page said, yeah, it sounds like you have malignant hyperthermia. You need to get tested. This is very serious. The death rate is very high if you're not treated. And it's genetic, so everyone in my family could have it. So I did. Long story short, I went and got genetic testing from a geneticist. I had to go to a pediatric geneticist, even though I'm an adult, because there just aren't any adult ones really available. So I did genetic testing, which was all negative. So there were no answers. And then after that, I requested a muscle biopsy. And that was when I started getting pushback. When I was in the hospitalized, all the internal medicine doctors that came through on rounds, and I was there, I think, 5 days. So I probably saw 5 different ones because every day it's a different one. Every single one I asked about malignant hypothermia. Could this be what happened? I had this rhabdo. It was immediately after I was given succinylcholine because I checked my surgery report. And every single doctor said, no, there's no way. It's so rare. There's no way. That's not what it was. And they said, just go ahead and put in your chart that you're allergic to succinylcholine. And I said, well, I don't think this was an allergy. I think this was more of like a reaction. And I said, not only did I get rhabdo, but my kidneys and my liver started to fail. And my CK level didn't even go that high. And every single one of them said, nope, don't even worry about that. Nope, not a thing. Nope, you don't need to get a biopsy. Nope, you don't need to do anything. So I got a lot of pushback on that. But I am who I am. And I pretty much demanded a muscle biopsy. I ended up getting hooked up with Wake Forest in North Carolina through the Malignant Hypothermia support page and the Malignant Hypothermia Association of the US, which is called MHouse. So I went and to this doctor and they did the muscle biopsy and it was a strong positive. So I definitely have, no question, 100% have malignant hypothermia susceptibility is what it's called. So I knew I had that with no known mutation. So I actually joined a study through the National Institute of Health and the University of Florida, where they're using genetics of people like me who had known genetic mutation testing with a positive biopsy. And they're trying to figure out what my genetic mutation is for malignant hypothermia. My biopsy also showed evidence of a possible mitochondrial myopathy, which is a fancy word for muscle disease. So I also have been under investigation for that. And again, all my genetic testing for that, negative so far. I do have a few variants of unknown significance. So I'm thinking that one of those is likely my genetic mutation, and that eventually, with studies and all of these things, I might be able to get an actual answer. And then hopefully, my family, who has a 50% chance of having what I have, will be able to get like a simple blood test rather than having to do a muscle biopsy, because that's the only option right now to find out if they have it or not. But
Wow.
since then, sorry, since then, I definitely have been experiencing rhabdo repeatedly, whether it's mild or more severe. And I've been tracking my rhabdo experiences to try to figure out what my triggers are, because I didn't know. And I'm walking around thinking, am I going to get rhabdo from this? Am I going to get rhabdo from that? I didn't know. And I knew actually from you and the rhabdo page that urine does not always turn brown. And after this experience, looking back at my medical records, I know I had had rhabdo before, and that was the only time my urine had turned brown. So not documented, but I kind of knew. So I got my PCP to give me a standing order for my CK, and I started tracking it, and I've been tracking it for about 2 years, 2.5 years now. And I have discovered that I have certain triggers that cause my CK to go up and cause rhabdo. And when my CK gets to only around 400 or 500, that's when my kidneys and my liver start to fail. So I have to be a lot more careful than a quote normal rhabdo case, who generally they don't care unless your CK is over 1,000. Because of that, I've gotten a lot of pushback from the ER. So generally, I know that my CK at 500 is dangerous for me, and it's going to either get worse or my kidneys are going to fail. So I did start going to the ER earlier and with lower CK levels sometimes. Now I had the lab, so I already had the proof. So I would show up and say, look, I have this disease. I had this muscle biopsy. It's not all discovered yet. But if you don't do something, I'm going to get worse and I'm going to crash. And I have a history of complete kidney failure, liver failure, respiratory failure from, we think, this. So I say, listen, you got to take this seriously. Every single time they would say, no, your CK level's not high enough. We don't need to do anything. It's not that high. This is not that serious. And they would say, your kidneys aren't doing great, but they're not completely failing. And I would say, yeah, not yet. But if you don't do something, they're going to fail. And then it's possible that this will lead to multi-system organ failure, like I've had in the past. And it was like, I guess I have PTSD, medical PTSD from it, because a lot of times when I don't feel good, I don't even want to bother going to the ER anymore, because I know that I'm going to be met with pushback. I even had one ER doctor say to me, lady, I could go outside and run around the parking lot 5 times in a row and get the same CK level that you have right now. So it's not a big deal. And I said, it might not be a big deal for someone that's normal, but it might be a big deal for someone who has an underlying condition like I do, and I'm very good at advocating. I also do not allow them to ever give me pain meds, because I want my head to be clear. So I've had to become a good advocate and push back. And generally I had gotten to the point where I would at least get them to give me fluids in the ER and then let me go. And then I had the standing order for the CK. So if I needed to go back, I could. And I didn't have to wait in the ER for 12 hours. I could just hop by the lab and get it checked. And as long as it's trending down, then I know I don't have to go back.
Mm.
Also, side note, I forgot to tell you, the other reason I have trouble more than most is I also have a condition called gastroparesis. So my stomach does not empty. So I'm physically unable to drink enough at home that would get me out of trouble with a rhabdo flare up or a CK elevation flare up. So I'm not capable of drinking the amount of fluid that I would need to. So that's why I go to the ER also, so that I can get IV fluids, because I know that's what I need. So I think that's the main things that I've been through recently since last time we talked. I have figured out my triggers are heat. For example, I went to a charity prom event a couple weeks ago. I did nothing. I sat and I brought ice packs and put them on me. I brought my thermometer to make sure my temperature didn't go too high, because when I have an episode, my body temperature rises. And I did not dance, mostly because the DJ kind of sucked. Not my music. So from my era. So I didn't do anything besides sit and talk with my friends, and my CK level registered at like 300 24 hours out from just simply being overheated. It happened to be a warmer day that day. It happened to be 80 degrees that day, which isn't super hot, but for my body it was too hot. So my temperature went up to 102 while I was at prom, just sitting there doing nothing besides sitting and talking, because it was a warmer night. And so that's one of the examples. Heat, any type of exercise. So had I danced at prom, I would have definitely went. My CK would have definitely went over 1,000, and I would have had to be admitted, because I've done that before. So heat, exercise, any viruses like the flu, COVID, that throws me into full rhabdo episodes and kidney failure and liver failure. If I'm dehydrated, that of course doesn't make it better. So I don't know if that would cause it alone, but it would. It also is a underlying factor that if I get hot and I'm dehydrated, then I'm in trouble. And then extreme stress. So like physiological stress. So like anytime I have surgery, even if they don't use what are called MH triggering agents, I still go into rhabdo. So now anytime I have surgery, they admit me and they keep me for about 5 days, and they keep me on fluids and bicarb to kind of level out my CK so that it doesn't go too high and that I don't crash. And generally, even with treatment, my CK level still goes to around 400 or 500 after surgery. So it's kind of been a crazy ride, but I'm figuring it out. And I know what to do and what not to do now. I just have to avoid my triggers as much as possible. And I wear my mask if I go out, because I try not to get the flu or COVID, because those are variables I cannot control. I can control heat for the most part, and I can control somewhat my stress level. But, flu and COVID, those kind of triggers, I just don't have the ability to control. So I'm just a lot more careful. I live my life a little differently now, and I rely heavily on that standing order for my CK level, especially because when I do go to the ER, they blow me off and they don't believe me and they act like I'm overreacting.
You've gone to the same emergency room multiple times,
Oh, yeah.
and you would think that they would have your past medical records that they could pull up on a computer screen
They do.
and see that what you've said, that you've gone into kidney failure and liver failure, and you're saying respiratory failure as well, and yet they're still not taking you seriously?
I will say the major episode where I almost died and they told my parents to say goodbye to my unconscious body was at a different hospital. So that would be an Epic, though. So they should be able to log into Epic, which is a system that goes across all hospitals, and pull up my records. But it was from 2013. So a lot of times I just tell them that happened and they never look it up. So I don't know if that's part of the reason, because they don't have access easily to that. But yes, they have had all my new Rhabdo episodes. They've had valid Rhabdo episodes. They'd have my CK over 1,000. They've had kidney failure. They've had liver failure. So all of that, yes, is on file, and they can easily pull it up. And they use it against me almost. They'll say, well, your CK level was 1,800 last time, and this time it's only 500. And then I'll say, run my metabolic panel and look at my kidneys. And then they do. And then they see they're like struggling a little bit. And they say, yeah, well, you're right. And I say, I know. And then generally that's when I can get them to give me fluids, at least in the ER, if not be admitted. Anytime I have any sort of respiratory distress, though, they admit me immediately now. So I feel like they're taking that part of it more seriously. Last year, I went to the YMCA swimming pool with my son because he wanted to exercise. And honestly, I thought that was the only exercise I could do because I can't get overheated and I can't do exercise real. So I thought, well, if I walk around in the pool with him, that'll be safe because I'll be cool. Well, I wasn't. And I think the chlorine bothered my asthma. Then the exercise bothered my whatever, my CK level, my muscles, and it threw me into a spiral. And this was just last March, and I did go into respiratory distress, and my kidneys started to fail. So they did immediately admit me for that episode, but it was interesting to me because I had every single variable was the same except my I was wheezing from my asthma, and my oxygen level was a little bit low because of my asthma. So I feel like they admitted me simply for respiratory reasons rather than dealing with the whole picture or the rhabdo part of the picture, at least.
So many questions, really.
You know, I'm an interesting case.
Yeah, and I literally have so many questions. Number one, circling back to the first time you had rhabdo and you said it started in your calves and it worked its way up to your legs and you were in pain. Were you in pain when you were not moving or?
Not hardly at all, actually. That was why I didn't go to the ER right away, I think, because if I laid super still, I didn't have a lot of pain at all. It was if I moved. And it was weird because even like the muscles in my finger hurt. So if I tried to like grab my phone, my hand muscles hurt. So and it was head to toe that it hurt. And it was it's hard to describe. I describe it as if you were a person who has ever worked out. I used to be a competitive gymnast, so I used to work out a lot. And honestly, I don't know how I'm alive because I did that when I was very young. And if I had this muscle disease my whole life, who knows how many times I had rhabdo that I didn't know about when I was young. But I describe it as if you worked out really, really, really hard and you're super, super, super sore the next day. That's how I feel. And then it almost feels like using the muscles almost feels like a burning, ripping, tearing pain as well as sore. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah, it's been described to me as one person told me it felt like her muscles were being put through a meat grinder and her bones were breaking.
I
And
feel like that's a good description as well.
yeah, I use that a lot since she told me that. But when you had the pain, you were in pain when you were not moving?
Not hard. I mean, I would say maybe a little bit, but not. I mean, maybe if I wasn't moving, I would rate my pain like a 2. And if I moved, I would rate it a 10.
And okay,
So I just didn't move. I just tried not to move and thought,
right,
well, I'm just going to get better and I'll
right.
just not move in the meantime. And then
Yeah,
I'm telling you, if my urine hadn't turned brown, I never would have went to the hospital because I'm so programmed
sure,
for them not believing me and not taking me seriously, not
right.
just from rhabdo, but I have kidney stones. And when you go for kidney stones, they don't believe you about that either. They immediately think you're like a drug seeker. They blow you off. They don't believe you. They won't help you. They're kind of snotty to you. So I feel like I have like medical PTSD from a couple different scenarios. So I never would have went. And ever since then, by the way, my urine has never turned brown, not one more time. And I've had documented robbed at least 3 to 5 times since then. And I've had elevated CK levels where my kidneys start to fail probably 30 times since then with
So
no change in my urine. It does get a little darker, but it doesn't turn brown.
so you just proved what we all know is that your urine does not have to change color for you to have rhabdo. So the influencers need to know that so they stop talking about it. And then
Correct.
also, I usually make the distinction when people say to me, "Do I have rhabdo?" One of the first things I say is, "Are you in pain when you're not moving?" It's not foolproof, but regular delayed muscle soreness that anybody's worked out has had. That doesn't hurt until you move or you press on the muscle. And
Agreed.
usually, when rhabdo happens, you're in pain when you're not moving. But what you just said is you were in pain even a little bit
Yeah.
when, yeah. So
And
even
I also think that I have a skewed perspective because I do have some sort of autoimmune disease as well, and whatever this mitochondrial muscle disease is. So I'm always in pain. So if you were to ask me what my pain level is right now with no CK elevation today, and quote, healthy today, I would give you a number that I'm in pain. So I have a baseline of pain. So sometimes it's hard for me to put a number or exactly understand where my pain is coming from. Barometric pressure changes give me pain for whatever autoimmune disease I have, which they think might be lupus. So if I'm having lupus pain, is that different? And how do I tell the difference? And for me to say I'm in pain, it takes a lot of pain for me to count, for it to count.
yeah, you're used to being in pain. So, and
Right.
again, I just wanted to bring that up because the rule of thumb that I usually bring up is not perfect. I usually make the distinction: pain felt at rest is not normal. Delayed muscle
Correct.
soreness doesn't hurt until you move, and delayed muscle soreness doesn't hurt anybody long term. But pain felt
Correct.
at rest is not a normal thing, and that's usually what I'll say. It could be rhabdo, it could be something else, and if it gets worse and worse, then it may be rhabdo. But it sounds like even that rule of thumb, which I always suspected was not perfect, but it's just a guideline that I sometimes use.
I would
But
agree with it for sure.
knowing
I
that it's
think,
not perfect.
yeah, I would agree with it based on my history. And the pain does feel different. Like when I have pain from barometric pressure changes, it's almost like an aching feeling. Like when you have the flu and you have body aches, that's what that feels like. And rhabdo feels sore, like I worked out, and it's very sore. Um,
Yeah.
and if I worked out and then I got rhabdo, which I would, now I know that I would. I purposely avoid working out. I'm like, thank God I have an excuse to never work out again. But if I were to, I feel like the way I would know is because it would be a level 10 pain. And you should not, no matter what, you should not have a level 10 pain after a workout. Like you just shouldn't. So that would be another tip, I guess I would say to people who are like, is this rhabdo or not? If it's level 10, it shouldn't be that bad from working out.
And you said you were a gymnast earlier,
Mhm.
and you don't recall ever having any issues that you were aware of when you
Oh,
were
I
at the.
did. I was always sore. I was always complaining. I was always telling my coach that I hurt, always, constantly. But nobody ever took me to a doctor, and I doubt that my urine ever turned colors, but even if it did, would I have known that as a 6-year old? No. So looking back, now that I have a diagnosis, now that I've been tracking it, now that I understand what it is and what it feels like, absolutely I know I had rhabdo before. I think that I lived up north, so it wasn't hot. Now I live in the south, so I think heat has been a big factor for making me worse. I think I've damaged my muscles over the years, so I think every time I get rhabdo or CK elevations, the damage is just compounding, I guess. So I think the older I get, the worse it is for me. Um, because of all of those things. But yes, looking back, I do think that I did have rhabdo. I just didn't know what it was. And I thought everyone was in pain after they worked out. So to me, I mean, I started when I was 3 years old. So to me, it was just you work out, you're sore the next day. I also wasn't that good, if we're being honest. I was kind of medium. So I don't know how hard I actually worked out. And my coach told me we're still friends to this day. And she did apologize to me, by the way. She said, now that I know all this, I'm so sorry. I should have listened to you. I should have believed you. I should have taken your pain more seriously. And then she says, but you complained all the time, every day. So, like, I thought that you were just a whiny little brat. And I said, I am a whiny little brat, but I'm a whiny little brat who had a muscle disease that you didn't know about. But yeah, I think that I just didn't know what it was, but I think I was having episodes when I was a kid. And I did that until I was 18, 19, and then I stopped. I coached for a while in my 20s and then I stopped doing that.
Mm. And you also brought up that your CK levels go maybe 500 or so, and
Mhm.
that's still enough to get you to go to the hospital, which again kind of busts not only a myth, but in the world of rhabdo, the first thing that people tell me is their creatine kinase level. My CK level was
Yeah.
50,000, 100,000,
Right.
800,000. And I think it gives the impression that the higher the number, the worse it is, and
And
that's
that
not.
is not, that is one thing I would love to spread awareness on, because even people on the Rhabdo support page will tell other people, oh, you're fine. Your CK level was only 2,500. You're fine. It's not that big of a deal. You're fine. Well, no, that's not true. My kidneys fail when I hit 500, definitely fail when I'm over 1,000, and get worse and worse and worse if I don't get treatment immediately. So that's why I go early, because now that I've been tracking it, I know the earlier I go and the earlier I get treatment, the better off my kidneys are, which is what I'm protecting. The muscle part, does it suck? Yes. Does it hurt? Yes. Is it causing permanent damage? Probably. But the kidneys, I need those. I'm only in my 40s. I need those for a long time. And they're not great. And even when I am through my little episodes or illnesses, they do go back to what I call my normal, but they never go back to what was normal for a 46-year-old woman. So I am extra careful, and I wish that people would spread more awareness on the number does not matter, because I've seen people have 500,000 CK and their kidneys are perfectly fine. So it just depends on how it affects you. I also have found that even for myself, the level of the CK does not always correlate with the level of my pain either. So sometimes my pain will be really, really bad, and I think, oh man, I gotta go. I might have like full on rhabdo. I might need to be admitted, and I'll go, and my CK level's only 300, and I'm like, oh. And then I'll check my kidneys, and if they're okay, I stay home. If they're not, I get admitted. But sometimes I'll go, and like once, not last year, the year before, 2024, I actually got hit with para-influenza 4, which is croup in kids. You've heard of croup? So I got that as a grown woman. Then that threw me into full rhabdo flare, and my CK was over 1,000. So I was admitted for that. Then I got discharged, and while I was still sick, I got whooping cough, which is pertussis, which is a bacterial infection. And interestingly enough, that one did not throw me into rhabdo. And then after that, while I was still sick, because whooping cough lasts for like 6 months, I got COVID, which was a virus, threw me into rhabdo again. Now, when I had rhabdo and croup, I had body aches like you would get with like the flu or COVID. I had classic flu-like body aches. So I did not know that I was in rhabdo, because the pain, I was chalking it up to flu pain and thought, well, it's just because I have COVID, or it's just because I have croup. I don't need to worry about this. And I went to the lab for a different lab. And while I was there, they ran my CK level because it was a standing order, and it came back critical alert level. And my doctor called me and said, "You have rhabdo. You need to get to the hospital." And I said, "I do." I said, "I didn't even know," because I was already in so much pain from the virus that I didn't realize that I had a CK flare at the same time. So I feel like that's an important thing that people would want to understand as well. If you're having flu body aches and you have a history of rhabdo, go get your CK level checked. Just do it. Just go get it checked. Because if you have rhabdo, it can affect your kidneys and you need to get treatment. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And you also said you were unable to drink all the water that they usually tell people to drink after they send them home from the hospital. Uh,
exactly.
you know,
Exactly. And that's why sometimes they keep me a little longer than a normal person. Once I get admitted, and once I can explain to a doctor and have more than 5 minutes in a frantic ER environment, I am able to advocate and explain. And the doctors, most of them, this is usually internal med that does rounds. Most of them say, "This is way over my head. I don't do genetics, but you sound like you know what you're talking about, and we're going to just do what you say." So once I'm admitted, I usually can get them to do the fluids, recheck my CK every 12 hours, make sure, recheck my kidneys once a day, make sure I'm okay. And then as long as my labs are trending down, the CK is trending down, and my kidneys are back to close to what I consider my normal, then I will usually be the one to say, "I feel comfortable letting me go home if you're okay." Or they will say, "Are you okay with going home? I don't know what to do with you." And sometimes I say no. One time in March, last March, when I was there for the respiratory distress and it threw me into rhabdo, I said, "No, I don't feel comfortable going home. I think I still need to be here." And then the next day they said, "Do you feel comfortable going home?" And I said, "No." And they kept me again. So I ended up being there, I think it was like 7 days, I think, which they would have probably sent me home at 5 days had I agreed. And I did want to get home to get to my dog, my tater tot, but I knew that medically it was smarter for me to stay. So I did stay. And then
right.
I was okay. Generally, also, when I get home, I can't drink enough. So I call it the 2 day hospital crash. So the day I get home, I usually feel pretty good. Next day, I still feel pretty good. Second day home from the hospital, I call it the crash. I always crash. I always feel terrible. And I'm always like, "Oh man, I shouldn't have left." And oh, do I need to go back? But then I fall on my standing order and I go get it checked if I need to. And then if I need to go back, I go back. And if I don't, I stay home. So it's kind of like the best thing I would do is I need a lab at my house. That's what I need so that I could just check it myself. But the standing order, I would recommend that for anyone who has a history of repeated rhabdo for any reason because it's so much easier. I literally can do a walk-in appointment at the hospital. I have a stat order and it still takes like 3 hours to 4 hours for my lab to come back, but I can see it in the my chart. So if I go get my lab, I know within 3 or 4 hours. And the good thing about that too, with them not believing me, if I have a CK over 1,000, I just print the lab and I walk into the ER with that printout and I tell the triage nurse, I have rhabdo, I need to be admitted. And then they look at it and they go, critical alert. Yep, they go, come with me, ma'am. And they take me right back. I don't have to sit there and wait in the waiting room where I'm exposed to whooping cough and all of the other things that I'm going to catch. So it's been good if I have a lab that's over their criteria.
It just sounds like they're treating guidelines and not people
They are.
and playing statistics.
They are.
And yeah, and I get it playing the odds, but you're walking in repeatedly with the
Right.
same issue. You'd
I mean,
think,
they know me there. Like when I go there to get labs, they're all like, hey, Courtney, you here for your CK level? And like, I see people on the elevator and I'm like, hey, how are you? Doctors stop me in the hallway and ask me how I am. I do feel like I don't know a lot of the ER doctors because they rotate so often and so quickly that I don't get to know the ER doctors. And that might be one of the downfalls because they are treating me as a statistic and a number. And if they did know me, they would not treat me like that. I know they wouldn't. Even with the kidney stones, you know. And the kidney stones is interesting too because they treat me terribly and then the second that I say I don't want narcotics and I ask for Toradol, which is a NSAID, so it's just like really really strong ibuprofen. Second I ask for that instead, they're like, it's like a light switch flips and they're super nice to me and they're like, oh honey, how are you, do you need anything? And they're so nice. And after my CAT scan shows that I have kidney stone, so they confirm I have a stone, I don't ask for narcotics, and then they're super nice to me. So
I love
it's
that.
interesting how you have, and it's almost like I feel like I have to play a game when I go because otherwise you don't get the proper treatment.
Which feeds into the post-traumatic stress of rhabdo that nobody really talks about that I've heard of other than,
Maybe
here.
me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's really I get emails on rhabdo research every day. I see the news reports every day. It's part of my morning
Yes.
routine.
Yes.
Nobody's talking about the stress of rhabdo, and it's something that I've seen since I first started talking about rhabdo. Everybody told me the same thing in the beginning. I've never heard of this condition before. It was the
Yep.
worst pain I ever felt, and I'm terrified to exercise again. And I
Oh
was
yeah.
shocked. I was
I
shocked at
won't.
how many people said terrified to me. And I
Oh,
remember sitting there at my computer saying, "Oh my God, these people are dealing with post-traumatic stress."
absolutely. I mean, I'm not formally diagnosed, but I will tell you 100% I have medical PTSD for sure. I have rhabdo PTSD. I have kidney stone PTSD. I don't even want to go to the ER. I'm not even going to bother because they're not going to help me PTSD. Even when I had whooping cough, they discharged me. And I told the doctor, I don't feel safe to go home. I'm still wheezing. My lungs are not okay. I still am too sore. My kidneys still aren't where I would like them to be. I don't feel safe going home. And she patted me on my knee and said, you were admitted for rhabdo. Your labs are under 1,000 CK. They were like 600 at that point. And she said, patted me on my knee and said, I think you have some PTSD from 2013 and you're fine and we're going to need to send you home. And I said, well, then I'm going to end up right back here. I hope you know that. And it'll count against you. And she said, honey, I think this is in your head and you're just really worried and you just have some PTSD going on and maybe you need to talk to a therapist. And I said, okay. And I said, thank you for your help. I will see you in 2 days max. And because I knew I wasn't okay, I knew I shouldn't have been discharged that time. And that time I was admitted for rhabdo. That was my diagnosis upon admission. So they were not really treating my lung symptoms. They were treating the rhabdo, and I had been previously diagnosed with parainfluenza 4, which is croup, and that is the only diagnoses I had. So I had a previous diagnosis of parainfluenza, which they told me would take 8 weeks to resolve. It had not been 8 weeks, and I was admitted for rhabdo. And she patted me on the knee, told me it was all in my head, told me I had PTSD, told me to calm down, told me I was absolutely fine, told me I could go home, blah, blah, blah. I went home. My lung doctor, my pulmonologist, happened to be on vacation that week, so I couldn't contact him. As soon as he got back in the office, I sent a my chart message to him and I said, look, I was just in the hospital for rhabdo. I had parainfluenza. I think I have something new. I'm worse. I am not okay. I need to go back to be admitted. And this stupid hospital would not take me seriously. I asked them to retest me. They would not. They sent me home. I do not feel safe, blah, blah, blah. He said, come into the office immediately. I did. He said, I think you have whooping cough. He tested me, positive for whooping cough, readmitted to the hospital. So hopefully that admitting doctor learned a lesson, because they do get dinged if you come back within so many days, and I was back within 2 days. So I never filed a complaint, and I feel like I probably should have, because what if this happens to somebody else? But she literally told me it was all in my head. There was nothing wrong with me. She never put me on a contagious floor, never put a contagious note on my door. So I had elderly people, volunteers coming into my room. They would open the door and I would say, I'm contagious, get out.
Right.
Now looking back, I had whooping cough. I could have given it to those elderly people that were volunteering at a hospital. And I don't know, because I didn't know I had it, because she refused to test me, told me I was fine, told me it was all in my head, told me my rhabdo had resolved, which it hadn't, and kicked me out. Literally kicked me out. Literally, she signed the release paperwork before she even came into my room that day. So, how do you fight it? And I was so tired and I didn't feel good that I didn't fight it. But I was back, and I told her I'd be back, and I was back. So I hope she got dinged.
I'm sorry you've been
But
dealing
I
with
think
all
that's
that.
part of the PTSD. It's part of why I don't want to go, because that's what they do to you, whether it's rhabdo or anything else.
Right. And you even got rhabdo in a pool, walking in a pool,
Yes,
which
yes,
is what a lot of people would say do because there's no eccentric action in the pool. It's all concentric, but you still got rhabdo.
yes.
Um, wow. Have you ever been written up in a case report? Did any doctor decide to write you up? I mean, as a
Uh,
case and publish it?
Not yet. I do have a geneticist who, basically, my son has started to have problems. I know that I've talked about him before with you, but for my people on the YouTube, he's 26 and he has started to have very, very similar issues and episodes. He actually had a CK elevation from taking an antidepressant, which is another thing that I have heard. I've never taken those, so I don't know if that would give me rhabdo, but he did, and he had a CK elevation from going to PT. His shoulder dislocated, so he had to go to PT for his shoulder strength. And as you can imagine, PT for shoulder, you're not doing that much. He was rolling a ball on the wall and tossing a ball back and forth to the lady, and that was it. It wasn't running, riding a bike. It was very minimal, and he had a CK elevation from just that. So his geneticist, we're trying to get his genetic testing approved so we can compare mine and his and see if we have the same variants of unknown significance, and possibly get us into a study based on that. And they also have my leftover muscle, and they've been working on that, and they did find what's called a mitochondrial deletion. So they're working on that. So I guess I'm kind of in my own study. It's not a study with other people, but this genetic office is studying me, and he is interested in doing a case study on me, but not yet, because we don't have answers yet.
Right.
So
Okay.
he asked me and made me sign paperwork that said I won't get any money, but he said, eventually, can I do a case study on you? And I said, absolutely, do whatever you want, because I want this to be known. I want it out there. I want to spread awareness, everything.
I think you'd be a good candidate for a case study report, and that's why I asked because that's usually where we learn a lot of rhabdo. There's very little clinical studies on rhabdo because it's kind of unethical to do some of that research.
It's interesting to me that I am not a case study yet, because I feel like they should be knocking on my door, but they're not. And I'm the one that's like, put me in a study, please study me, do something, check my son, check me, like, so it's very interesting. And I hope that they do that.
How long you been dealing with gastroparesis?
I always had like weird issues when I was younger, and like my mom would always fight with me about you have to eat breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and I would lie and pretend to eat my Pop Tart and then give it to my friend on the school bus because I always felt sick if I ate in the morning. So I feel like it kind of was always a thing, but I wasn't diagnosed until I'm going to say after that severe episode in 2013 when I almost died. They were trying to figure out what was wrong with me. So they were doing tests and tests and tests and tests. And one of them was a gastroparesis test. And I did. So I think 2014 is when I officially found out. And I redid the test recently because it had been so long since the diagnosis. And my doctor wanted to see if it was worse or better or whatever. And recently, when I redid it's called a gastric emptying test. And you eat radioactive eggs, and they take a series of x rays over 4 hours to see how quickly or slowly your stomach empties. And at the end of 4 hours, you're supposed to empty 90 to 100% of your stomach content, and I had only emptied 14% at 4 hours. So I have what's considered very severe gastroparesis, which explains why I can't even drink water. Because, say, I eat a chicken sandwich, it's stuck in there for 24 hours. And then I'm drinking, it doesn't have anywhere to go. And if I drink too much, it doesn't have anywhere to go. It's coming out the top because it doesn't have anywhere to go. So I have to just sip, 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 small sips all day, is what I do.
What's your normal eating habits like then?
Oh, I only eat once a day.
You really are a rhabdo mystery. It's a challenge because, even pool exercise triggering it. Wow,
And it wasn't even really exercise. I walked,
right.
and then my son, he was on swim team, so he swims for real. And I go behind him and sometimes do like a half modified, like whatever that breaststroke is called. But I don't really do it. I just like, doggy paddle basically. So that's all I did. And we don't do that much. I was shocked at how little I did. And same with prom. I was shocked that I literally didn't dance. I just sat and talked. I did get up and walk around, to go get a drink and talk to people, take pictures, but that's it. And 102 temperature and a CK flare up. And I thought, and I brought ice packs with me. I iced myself down. One of my doctors actually came with me, and he watched, and he said, "This is fascinating to watch." And I said, "Have you not been paying attention in my appointments for the last few years? Because I've been telling you that this happens to me." And he said, "It's different when you're sitting in an office and telling me, hey, I went to prom and I got overheated." He goes, "I'm watching you take your temperature. I'm seeing that you did nothing and it's 102 in front of my face while you're wearing ice packs." So he said, "I cannot imagine." And he said to me at one point, he said, "Do you really have to live like this?" And I said, "Yes, because if this overheating and rhabdo thing is a malignant hyperthermia flare, I can die. I can die." So, yes, I have to ice myself down. I have to make sure my temperature doesn't go to 104, 105. And if it did, I would have to go to the hospital, and I would probably have to get in a bathtub full of ice. And I do actually have friends who are on the malignant hyperthermia page support group who have died from that. I have one friend, his son went to the beach with his family for a day, got overheated, couldn't cool down fast enough, didn't go to the hospital fast enough, and he died from simply going to the beach with his wife and kids. I have another one that died from exercising because they got rhabdo and went into a flare, and then it's with just simply rhabdo, it's usually just the muscle enzymes and the kidneys that are affected. With malignant hyperthermia, it's the body temperature that rises and it can shut your organs down. So that's why I have to be extra careful. So yes, I have to take ice packs. Yes, I have to bring my thermometer in my purse everywhere I go. Yes, I have to not exercise. Yes, I have to not have fun, basically.
Right. Well, you have a good attitude about it, and I think that's
I try
really
to.
important. You have to. You have to
Yeah,
because I think the average person would really be shutting down from this. And I know we all have our good days, our bad days, but
exactly. And don't get me wrong, I cry in my room. And why me? Why me? But it is me. So I will figure it out eventually. And if anyone can get someone to do a case study or a study or whatever, it's going to be me. I will not give up. I was at my geneticist last week and he said, "Why are you fighting so hard for answers?" And I said, "Because whatever is wrong with me is wrong with my brother, one of them, my son, and one of my nieces. And I don't want them to be the one that dies
Right.
from an episode that's as stupid as exercising. Like,
Right.
that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." So, and he had forgotten. And he said, "Oh, that's right. I forgot that your family was having issues." And he said, "That's justified. That's understandable. You should fight." So it wasn't, but he wasn't asking me in a rude way. He was asking me in a just explain to me why. Because he said, "There's no treatment, so why do you care?"
You're your own best advocate, as our discussion has highlighted multiple times today. I also think the good part here is we live in an amazing time. I mean, the world literally is changing in front of our eyes, especially with this whole AI thing, which again is a bit controversial, but who knows what that thing's going to think up a cure for in a
Oh,
few
yeah.
years. And it's growing exponentially. And I know I, like everybody else, make the joke, it's like Skynet, but I do think some good will come of this. We're living in an amazing time, and I have no doubt that eventually there's going to be some treatment for you. Don't
I
know
think so.
when, but I know that's going to happen. And
I
I
just
know,
don't know if I'll be alive when they
no, no, no.
come up with
I
it.
think
You
we
think
will. I
you
think,
think I'll get it done maybe? Because I'm like a what do they call, like a bull. Like I will not get, like, here's my horns. I will not give up.
but that's good. I think we're going to
Yeah.
see a day when you get a treatment.
I hope so. I do hope so. If not for me, if not for me, for my family members
Of course.
who I can see are being affected. My brother's had rhabdo with no known trigger. So we think he might have had the flu, but we don't have any documented. So, like,
Yeah.
it is genetic. It is happening. It is not in our heads, like some of them like to say. And
Right.
if there is an answer out there, I hope to be able to get it.
Yeah. Well, Courtney, this has again been an eye-opening discussion. We did more than I thought we were going to talk about today, but
Always, always with me, Joe.
no,
Always.
no, but this is good because I want to move the needle forward and get people talking about more about rhabdos. Well, I've been doing this for over 15 years.
I know. I don't know what we would do without you. And honestly, you have been a big, because there wouldn't there if I wouldn't have had the support page, I would have never known any of this. And I'm telling you, I'd be dead because I would have had surgery again and I would have died.
Yeah.
And or I would have exercised and went to prom and danced and died. Like, it's just, it would have happened if there weren't people like you and people sharing their stories. It just would.
Yeah, and it's the Rhabdo Recovery and Treatment Group on Facebook. If I,
Hmm.
and I jump in there an awful lot too, as you do.
Yes.
It's a great resource, and again, I don't run the page; someone else does.
Oh, I know. I
It's
know.
phenomenal, and I'm really glad.
I meant your feedback on the page has been valuable, though. It really has. And I've seen you comment on other posts, and I know you've seen me jump on, because anytime there's repeated rhabdo, I cannot stress enough that these people need to get the genetic testing, even if that's negative, like it was for me. Get the biopsy. It didn't hurt that bad. It was easy recovery, super easy, super super easy, easiest surgery I've ever had, and I've had like 30. I don't even know how many, I'd have to count, but worth it, you know. And you don't always even get an answer with biopsy, but if you have the biopsy, they've got your muscle, they can do testing on it later, which happened to me. I had my biopsy in 2020. They just kept testing it, and just found a mitochondrial deletion like 8 months ago.
Yeah,
So they have it and they can go back to it every so many years with new discoveries and figure stuff out.
yeah,
So,
which again gives me hope for the future.
exactly.
So, Courtney, this has been a great conversation. I know you're getting on time. You've got to feed Tater Tot.
It is. Her alarm went off if you saw me doing this. I was turning her alarm off. So, yeah, I'll feed her. And then you know that I'm always, here's Tater Tot, by the way.
Yeah.
I'll feed her. And then you know you can always call me or get my feedback anytime. I'm always willing to help. I love what you're doing.